Hi, welcome back. My name is Ryan Guffey, and it's awesome to be sitting with you again as we explore this video series.
Hi, everyone. Greg Hungerford here. And as Ryan alluded to, we're going to jump into the second video of this series, acknowledging and responding to our current state. And this is indeed a series for caregivers. And so we appreciate you all here today and landing with us.
So, since last time when we ended, we offered and invited you to consider something that you might be celebrating, something that's going well, and also an offering around self-care, like how are you taking care of you during this difficult time. So just take a moment, and if you haven't had the opportunity to consider a celebration or self-care, I invite you just to take a few minutes now. I know something that I've been celebrating since the last time we were together was just some of the beautiful weather we've been having, and how that connects to self-care for me is just getting outside and planting some flowers. Just kind of being able to sit with that, something that I'm grateful for.
And I know that I've been trying my best to keep up with my form of exercise, which is a little walk, run, and just doing my best to be kind to myself when the run turns more into a walk.
Awesome. That's awesome. So again, want to just ground you in this supportive framework around yourself, and awareness and intention and listening, patience and empathy. And we're going to stay connected to that as we continue to move through this series. And know around where we're landing today is really all about you as the caregiver and your needs around regulation. How we'll get there, hope that you feel welcome back into this space, and we'll move into it being all about you and looking into some strategies as well as what's kind of going on in your brain and how that connects to your own regulation as well. And then just some strategies to consider, an offering really about how you can work through some pieces to become regulated. So then ultimately that you feel regulated when you're working with or being with your children. And then what's next is really moving into that third part of the series.
Thank you, Ryan. I love coming back to our framework and this idea of awareness and intention, and how it just really sets the stage for our ability to think about what self-regulation means to us as adults. As Ryan and I alluded to in the first video, we're not pretending that we understand your world and what you're going through as a caregiver. Very difficult times right now, and this is an offering, and for you to kind of listen and digest and kind of figure out what best fits you at this moment. And that's the most ideal starting point is you. And as we think about self-regulation, the whole idea of managing one's thoughts and feelings versus fixing, in that it's very hard to fix and make everything go away. And Ryan and I don't want to pretend that life is always easy. It's not. And there are some joyful moments as well. But the idea of just being aware of what's going on in your head and what's going on in your body is the beginning of that awareness. And when we begin to do so, we become aware, we can begin to kind of start regulating one's behavior. And we do this through an interaction with others, and which is with caregivers. And we want to make sure that we are doing our best to stay grounded, and that when we are starting to get a little charged in our head and our body, that we don't lose control, that we learn how to throw a little water on the fire so that we can begin to kind of regulate and become aware of what's happening in the moment, so that we can be a little bit kinder to ourselves, so that we can do this very difficult but also important work of being a caregiver.
And acknowledging that there's a lot that's coming at us in the moment. I mentioned last time, my youngest and her needs at the moment can be overwhelming as you're trying to manage. And again, our hope as we move through and talk through some of these strategies is that it provides you with a sense of calm, being cool, calm, and collected. So that as we think about this silhouette to the left, that's the interaction that we're looking for: present, calm, ready to support your child and the needs that they might have.
So we thought, why not take a look at the brain, right? It's always good to know what's going on in the brain, because then we start realizing that some of the emotions and feelings and those deeper moods and our immediate reactions are grounded really in how our brain is operating in the moment. And we don't want to make this complicated. And really the idea, if you look at number one right there, that middle part of that brain, if I open up my hand right here, what we call kind of that midbrain is something we call the amygdala. And the amygdala has a very powerful impact on how we interact with stimuli that's coming at us in the moment. And that may be that reaction of overreaction, that fight, that they need to stand up for ourselves. We may shout, we may become a little angry. We may avoid and run away from something that's difficult. We may just freeze up in the moment. The amygdala was provided to us as a survival mechanism. And in some cases it's very helpful, but sometimes in the moment, it can kind of overcharge our reactions to situations that are happening as we work through being a caregiver. And the hippocampus, number two, the hippocampus is so necessary for us to take in information, memory, and storage. And when regulated, the hippocampus helps regulate that amygdala and keep it under check. But when number one, that amygdala really is out of control, we literally do flip our lid, and it's hard for us to stay regulated. And that last part we want to talk about is our prefrontal cortex. And that's that frontal part of the brain that helps us make good decisions, helps us stay regulated. And when we are calm and making good choices and moving about this world as a caregiver skillfully, really our prefrontal cortex is taking charge. And when perhaps we're flipping our lid on something going on, it's that amygdala that's really taking charge. And a lot of the practical ideas that Ryan and I are offering is we're trying to give you ideas to engage that prefrontal cortex, the driver of the brain, so that you can come back to the present moment and maybe stop the slide and just try to make perhaps just a little bit better choices or regulate a little bit more than before. And so what's going on? Awareness of self. Oh my. There are days when I am just not feeling it. And today was one of those mornings when I woke up, and maybe it's because of the clouds and I was a little bit more in a darker mood and a little bit more woe is me, what's happening to my teenagers, what's going to come next, are schools going to be open or not open? And I was just starting to really pay attention to kind of the moods in my brain and my body. And by talking it out, and Ryan and I had a chance to have a conversation before we started, I started labeling. I started labeling my moods and my feelings a little bit, and I started giving myself permission as a caregiver of teens to not be so hard on myself, that this is difficult sometimes what we're being asked to do. And again, as Ryan and I allude to, we don't understand your world per se and what you're going through, but the idea of just being aware and being okay of being human, and that sometimes things are going to be a little bit rocky. And by talking them out and labeling them like I did for myself this morning, the sun can shine a little bit more. And that this cloudy days and my concerns about my teenagers and what's going to happen next, it doesn't go away, but I've managed it a little bit better than before so that I'm ready to move forward and do the best I can.
As we think about that awareness and regulation and managing, we want to move into what that might look like. So how can we support our own regulation? Like, what are some strategies? We've talked a little bit about awareness. We've talked quite a bit about intention and what that might look like. So this idea of keeping the reservoir full. Greg just spoke about, anchoring and labeling. Like, what am I doing for myself so that I can pause in a moment to kind of say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, or this is what's going on. And that comes through awareness. This idea of being proactive comes from intention. And as we move into video 3, that will be those proactive pieces. What can I do beforehand when I know a situation that I'm walking into might be charged? If it's asking, my kids to take care of the dishes, or it's time to do your homework, and I know that those are situations that are challenging, how might I plan ahead?
And then we move to listening. And I love this concept of listening, and not just the form of actually listening to others in the moment, and how we can also lose yourself while trying to over listen in moments when really what it is about not paying attention to what you need in the moment, but maybe perhaps just listening to what somebody else maybe in your household needs in the moment. And so we move then just from the physical act of listening to stimuli to listening to what's going on inside of you. And that can be very vulnerable. That can be very tender sometimes when we simply stop and we decide that I'm going to pay attention and actually really listen to what's going on. What are the messages that are going on in my head and in my body that are causing me to act this way in a particular moment? And being kind to yourself and giving yourself compassion when maybe perhaps what's bubbling up isn't necessarily the most brightest and the most positive thinking, and just taking a step back and just listening with care and compassion about what might be going on in your head in the moment.
Which really leads us into this importance of self-care. And what does self-care mean? And we're going to offer some pieces around empathy and around patience. And again, connecting back to the supportive framework of ourselves. So what might empathy toward yourself look like as a strategy? It really is around self-compassion, and again, that awareness is linked here. Like, what am I recognizing that my body or my mind is telling me that I need? Am I in discomfort? Am I suffering a hardship? Yeah, like we're all suffering some type of hardship right now. Mine is certainly not the same as yours, but this idea of recognizing that I can't have contact with people that I care about in ways in which I used to. So I have to really engage in some self-talk and some kindness towards myself, that things are basically right now in this moment okay. And rather than, worrying about what's coming, can I just sit with that right now things are basically okay? And that this self-compassion is also receiving compassion from others. Maybe that's a little compassion that you're getting from Greg and I right now. Maybe that's a loved one. Maybe that's a friend. But being able to accept that in from them can also be a strategy in your own self-care.
Love it. And what Ryan's talking about right now, back to that slide about the brain, when you're talking to yourself, you are engaging that prefrontal cortex. And by engaging your prefrontal cortex and labeling and thinking, you're learning how to override those emotional parts of the brain. Those don't go away, but we're using our prefrontal cortex to help guide ourselves to make sure that we're framing positive thinking and positive thoughts. And again, not easy. We do our best, a few words here and there. And I'm going to offer this idea of patience. Oh my. Patience is hard to come by sometimes, especially when the focus is on others and not yourself. And for many of you caregivers, we know you are giving so much to everybody else and that your reservoir may be low. And I'm going to offer a strategy just called taking 3 deep breaths. And I'm going to make this idea of breathing, I don't want to overcomplicate it. we are literally going to breathe in, we are going to hold, and then we are going to breathe out slow. You can close your eyes, you can keep your eyes open. This is not a competition. But I'm going to invite us now just to stop and just take 3 slow, deep breaths. And again, if you'd like to open your eyes, you can. You can stare down or you can close your eyes, but always be careful. Take care of what's best for you. And I invite you now just to breathe in slowly, hold, and then breathe out. Breathe in slowly, hold, and then breathe out slowly. Breathe in slowly, hold, and then breathe out slowly. And those 3 deep breaths, they are always waiting for you. You can do this before you start your day, during your day, when your day is ending. And it's just a really good way to fill up the tank.
I would just invite you to notice how you feel after those 3 deep breaths, and consider what that might look like in terms of connecting that with self-talk when times are hard. Taking 3 deep breaths, and then as I move into this interaction with my kiddo, like, hey, I got this. I got this. I can do this. So here's an offering connected to self-care. Whether you have 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and you're like, Ryan, 30 minutes to myself, that seems unmanageable, and that's okay. So maybe looking at what does seem manageable within this offering. So we're just going to read through a couple. If it's 2 minutes, we just practiced 3 deep breaths. Maybe that's something that you might be able to do for 2 minutes to take care of yourself. If it's,
I know for me, oh, sorry, Ryan, for me, like 5 minutes, I've just been going and standing outside, and yes, it's just my backyard, and I do something called open awareness. Nothing to do. There's a bird chirping. There's a breeze on my face. Oh, there's that annoying dog barking. Just welcoming whatever might be waiting for me when I go outside, and giving myself permission to just sit or stand and just feel nature as it exists in the moment.
nice. It's awesome. And again, picking what works for you. Sometimes we hear, are you eating right? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you exercising? And all those things are certainly important, and it can be what works for you. I like to read a book. I want to listen to, some music. Picking out with intention what your mind and your body needs. So again, just bringing us back to that supportive framework. For 10 minutes, it might be write in a journal. And I'm going to offer a structure of what that might look like, looking for the good and savoring the good, and this idea of gratitude and what I'm thankful for today. And as Greg mentioned earlier, today looking out the window is a little gloomy. So I'm thinking about yesterday, and wow, like I'm really grateful when the sun is shining. Why? Because it allows me to get outside and do the things that fill me up. Why is that important? Because I'm being able to pause and take care of myself. Well, why is that important? Because I know when I'm taking care of myself, then I'm a better me, and I can be grounded and connected to the ones that I need to within my home, within a call that I'm doing right now. So it just allows me to be a better version of myself. So this is an offering, something that you might consider between now and next time is just writing down. And if you don't want to write it down, don't write it down. Maybe just kind of think about it and consider, what am I grateful for? And just continuing to dig into the why of that gratitude.
Beautiful. And I love just the awareness and the intention of just spending time being grateful, and how that just helps change the brain, changing that momentum towards focusing on the good, savoring the good, even the small bits.
Thank you. So where are we going from here? Next one, we're gonna look into co-regulation at a little bit deeper level. Now that you have some practices and some strategies for yourself, what might that look like in sharing that with your kiddos? Again, acknowledging the challenges of being a caregiver. It's not easy. It's hard. So looking into that a little bit more. And then just kind of considering your child's behavior and what might it be communicating. Is it something that they're trying to avoid, or attention that they're trying to gain? And then just being able to take a moment and consider strategies that might be helpful during those challenging interactions. So that's a quick download of where we're heading in video 3. And we just want to thank you again for spending a little bit of time with myself and Greg, and an offering of how you might take care of yourself and be a little bit more regulated.
Yes, thank you. This is a true gift for us to be able to be present with you all and to just offer some ideas, strategies for you to focus on you. And Ryan and I both believe firmly that adults first, caregivers first. Adults and caregivers that work on their own self-care and their own regulation are more adept and able to manage the throes of the days and the difficulties and also the celebrations of being a caregiver. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Until next time, be well.
Peace, everybody.